Cross-claims and counterclaims, according to the federal rules of civil procedure, really boils down to Rule 13A, B, and G. Okay? We're going to walk through this step by step. So get your rule book out, simply look at the whiteboard, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what these mean. Okay? We're going to go through a compulsory counterclaim, then a permissive counterclaim, and then simply a cross-claim. Okay? So let's walk through this step by step. So Rule 13A, as I said, is a compulsory counterclaim. Okay? So what's important about this is basically the definition here. We're going to walk through the definition one step at a time because it's really important to dissect exactly what this means. Okay? So according to the Rule 13A, a pleading must state as a counterclaim any claim that at the time of service, this is important, at the time of service, no other time, the pleader, the defendant, has against an opposing party, the plaintiff, if the claim, the defendant's counterclaim, must have this critical thing at the time of service, is this. It must arise out of the same transaction or occurrence of the subject matter. Okay? So let's say the plaintiff sues the defendant for negligence. They got into a car crash January 1st, 2021. Okay? They both were still hungover over their New Year's Eve party and driving back home from their friend's house because they were so drunk, and they got into a car accident. Okay? Plaintiff's like, nope, I'm gonna sue this guy. So plaintiff sues the defendant. Okay? So at the time of service, look at this. At the time of service, the defendant has an option. Okay? To sue the plaintiff right back. Okay? For the same transaction or occurrence. So let's say, like I just said, the plaintiff sued the defendant for negligence. Okay? So if the defendant wants to get back at the plaintiff to make a counterclaim, a countersuit, back at the plaintiff, he would have to sue under negligence. Okay? Or any other suit that would fit the facts of the case that arises out of the same transaction or occurrence of the subject matter of the negligent lawsuit. Okay? So, I don't know. Let me add a little more facts to the story. So let's say they got into a car accident, okay, negligence, and the plaintiff punched the defendant in the face, okay, battery. Okay, so the moment the plaintiff sues the defendant can say, oh yeah, during that car accident, not only did we get into a car accident, the plaintiff punched me in the face. Therefore, I can not only sue the defendant for negligence, I can also sue the plaintiff right back for battery. Okay? So again, make sure that when you are looking at this definition, you're trying to memorize the rules, you look at your legal analysis for your exams, again, the defendant must make this move at the time of service. If the defendant does it any other time later, the defendant is barred. The defendant can no longer sue the plaintiff right back for the same transaction or occurrence, okay? So the defendant can't sue the plaintiff 1 week later for negligence right back or battery right back and say, oh yeah, it happened at the same transaction or occurrence, therefore, Your Honor, I want to sue the plaintiff right back. The judge will look at him and say, oh dude, it's too late, okay? You're supposed to do it at time of service, no other time later, okay? So the defendant has to make a pretty quick move here on what he or she wants to do, okay? So remember, the pleading must state a counterclaim, the defendant's counterclaim right back at the plaintiff, at the time of service against the opposing party, the plaintiff, and it must arise out of the same transaction or occurrence of the subject matter of the plaintiff's lawsuit against the defendant. Okay? As I said, plaintiff sues the defendant for a negligence lawsuit because of the car accident that happened on New Year's Day, January 1st, 2021. The defendant can, if he wants to, sue the plaintiff right back for negligence, and they'll have those two lawsuits filed against each other. Okay? So we're going to get into a permissive counterclaim that's really about Rule 13A-B. Okay? As I said, this video is going to be about counterclaims and cross-claims. Okay? So 13A, B, and G, we'll walk through that one step at a time. Okay? So 13B will be permissive counterclaims, and we're going to transition to that right now. Okay. All right, so let's get into permissive counterclaims. Permissive counterclaims is Rule 13B, as I said, okay? So we're going to walk through this definition step by step in order to understand what it means. Okay, this is pretty different than compulsory counterclaims, and we're going to find out why. Okay, again, this is the general definition from the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Okay, so as I said, get your rule book out and let's walk through this step by step. A pleading may state as a counterclaim against an opposing party, the plaintiff, any claim. As you can see, I circled that word. Any claim that is not compulsory. And as we know, in order for a counterclaim to be compulsory, it must arise out of the same transaction or occurrence, right? And when you file a compulsory claim, the good thing about this situation, about a compulsory claim, is that it will happen at the same time. The lawsuit against the plaintiff will happen at the same time as the plaintiff is suing you. Okay, that's the advantage of having a compulsory claim. However, having any claim against the plaintiff would be a permissive counterclaim. As you can see with what I put down here in parentheses, claims unrelated to the original claim by the plaintiff will be tried separately. Therefore, the defendant can sue the plaintiff for anything. Doesn't matter what it is. It does not have to be on the same transaction or occurrence. The defendant can sue the plaintiff for any reason. However, the tricky part for permissive counterclaims is the fact that, hey, if the defendant wants to sue the plaintiff, let's say for defamation, rather than the negligence lawsuit that we talked about, it'll be tried separately. Okay, so the defendant probably have to wait a little bit in order to get that lawsuit set up. But basically, it'll be tried separately. It won't be tried at the same time. Okay, so remember, with a permissive counterclaim, the defendant can sue for whatever reason, but it'll be tried separately, and it cannot be compulsory. It cannot arise from the same transaction or occurrence. Okay. Something the polar opposite of compulsory. Okay, so let's get into Rule 13G. Okay, that is a cross-claim. Let's get into Rule 13G, which is a cross-claim against a co-party. What does that mean? We're going to go through the black letter law right now, the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Okay, we're going to walk through this definition, okay, one step at a time, and then I'm going to erase the whole board. Make a diagram, draw a diagram out, and then once we draw a diagram, we're going to explain what that diagram means. And I'm pretty sure that by the time I explain that diagram, you will comprehend what this rule means. That's when things will be much more clearer. Okay? So let's walk through this. As you can see, Rule 13G, cross-claim against co-party. Okay? So the definition is a pleading may state, remember it's optional, may state as a cross-claim by one party against a co-party. The plaintiff or defendant may do this if the claim arises out of the same transaction or occurrence of the counterclaim or the original claim, or if the claim relates to property to the original claim. Okay, what does this mean? So it's kind of messy. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say that the plaintiff sues the defendant and the defendant's like, I'm not liable for that car accident. Remember the negligence case that we just talked about on New Year's Day? Now, the defendant's saying, wow, I didn't cause that accident. It was the other guy that hit my car, and then that caused my car to hit the plaintiff's car. So the plaintiff's kind of suing the wrong guy here. So I'm going to sue the other man who hit my car negligently, and I'm going to make sure that he is going to be liable for this lawsuit, whatever damages I may incur by the plaintiff, so I can basically get my money back through the expense through the lawsuit that I may incur by the plaintiff suing me. Okay? Plaintiff sues defendant 1. Defendant 1 sues defendant 2. That is an example of a cross-claim against a co-party. The co-party is the defendant 2 who hit the defendant's car, the first defendant's car, that caused the damages to the plaintiff. Okay? So, and also, remember this, that the claim must arise out of the same transaction or occurrence, basically the same fact pattern as the claim that's being dealt with the situation. So, as I said, I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to draw it out, because that's going to make a lot more sense once I do that, okay? So let me draw this, let me erase this, give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, I'm sure you all see this diagram here. So what's going on here? So the plaintiff sues defendant 1, which is with N for negligence. Okay? As I said, the car accident happened on New Year's. And the defendant is like, that's not my fault. This guy down here hit my car, which caused damages to this guy. Okay, so I'm going to make the decision. To sue defendant 2 and let him be involved with this whole lawsuit here. So whatever damages that defendant 1 receives from the plaintiff, this guy's going to have to fight the case. And let's say that defendant number 2 wants to sue right back. Whether defendant 2 wants to sue the plaintiff or defendant number 1, defendant number 2, will have to follow Rule 13A. We'll have to file a compulsory counterclaim or a permissive counterclaim at the time of service in order for the defendant 2 to have a lawsuit against defendant 1 or the plaintiff. So basically, if defendant 2 wants to sue, he'll have to follow the same procedures that we talked about in Rule 13A. And at the time of service, basically sue the defendant 1 right back or decide to sue the plaintiff right back under the same transaction or occurrence. Okay? And it'll be tried at the same time. However, if defendant 2 wants to sue the defendant 1 or the plaintiff, if not both, for whatever reason, he or she must follow the permissive counterclaim and it'll be tried separately. Okay? So defendant 2 can sue for any reason, but it'll be tried separately. All right? So I hope this makes sense. It can be kind of confusing, kind of hairy, but if you have any questions, please comment below. Okay? I'm going to go through more rules, so procedure after this video, and we're going to make sure we understand these rules, okay? Thank you.